Hello guys, welcome back to another episode of Life in China. You might have noticed I have changed the title a little bit, streamlined it, and just kept it more focused on the topics rather than doing an episode 6, episode 7, blah 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 blah. So, as you can see from this title, today I'm going to be talking about my favourite things about living in China and being abroad, and the not so favourite, so the things I dislike. The list isn't even. I found it's easier to write about things you don't like than it is about things you do like. But don't take this as me saying I don't like to live here. Just more that it's not weighted as such, I should say. Like the things that I do like are weighted far more, I guess, than the things I don't like. So let's just get into the video. Let's talk about the first favourite thing, and it's something I've actually discussed as an entire episode, which you can check out, and that is food. Very obvious thing is the Chinese cuisine is absolutely amazing. Every restaurant I've been to, there's always been some dish that has wowed me and made me experience a flavour that I never really got to try back home. Chinese cuisine is not that big back in the UK. Most Chinese food was like that kind of like Americanized Chinese kind of food, which was like takeaways. You never really saw more prolific, proper Chinese cuisine like restaurants, at least for me anyway. And I did go around trying a lot of restaurants, but I never really saw anything like that different besides like the kind of more known things like noodles and dumplings. So to come here to China, and I've mentioned this a lot, and experience such a vast array of dishes and flavors is one of my like constant favorites here. I try to go out as often as I can and experience something new if I can, whether it's a different kind of hot pot or it's maybe just more classic restaurant dishes. I'll post some photos. I'll have like a montage of photos going past some of the more recent stuff that you can see. But I've barely scratched the surface of Chinese cuisine. Like I'm in Yangzhou, but like every province has got like their own kind of style and signature dish. Like Yangzhou's is fried rice, like their Yangzhou fried rice. They've also got the lion's head, which is not an actual lion's head. It's like a big meatball with like soup filling, I believe. Those are like very popular and like the signature of Yangzhou. But then you've got like other like provinces and places like Sichuan. Like Sichuan's known for like that kind of spice. And then up in Beijing, you've got like Peking duck. Like so, there's so much to discover. There's so much to find that. Even if I went to a restaurant every single day and tried a different dish in Yangzhou, I'm still not going to have even made it to 10% of what's offered here. And it's a sad but amazing thing because it just is, and it just tells me and it will tell you guys that there's so much you can try. There's so much variety. You'll never get bored of what you can eat. That's the whole point. That's one of the things I love here. The next thing is the job. Again, I've mentioned this in the video with my work. Now, I'm going to ignore like the negative things because every job has a negative point to it. But the job I have is excellent. The routine I do is very, I want to say, relaxed and quite streamlined. I'm not in these high stress environments most of the time. And even then, most of the stress is usually my own self with confidence, and that's something for my own self to get over. The actual job is great. I work with only 10 kids for each class. I get to be creative in drawings and art and games I do with them. I get to be silly and not really care about, getting judgmental comments or like cringe, I guess you could say. The age group is just right that you can generally do anything silly, and the kids will love it. Most of the parents are nice to work with. They're very accommodating and friendly, and they love to hear what you've got to say, the comments, and some even give you like thank you like gifts, just usually like food and drinks. But it's a really nice gesture. It's always great to have a parent come in and they give you this nice big milk tea just to say thank you for teaching my kid. So yeah, the job is great. I'm so happy and lucky. This was like the first job that I nailed when coming over here. The next thing is the cost of living. This might be a bit more personal to me. I don't take it as this is the norm everywhere, especially in cities like Shanghai and Beijing. But the cost of living is very cheap in Yangzhou, especially when I match it with my salary, which is quite high for an English teacher. So it just means that I've got a lot more money to do with what I want. And you've seen from the apartment tours with all the Lego and the games and stuff that I do what I want with it. The apartment itself is very cheap. Food is also very cheap. Like eating out, or even just ordering food, or even just going to buy it. They're both very cheap. Clothes are quite cheap as long as you don't go too far with brand stuff. Like brand stuff is always going to be expensive, but there are stuff like I usually get a lot of work clothes, things that just let me move around quite a lot, especially because that's related to my job. And there's like stores like Decathlon which sell like pants, like trousers and shirts and things like that, very cheap. Uniqlo sells quite, I guess, normal, trendy clothes that are also fairly cheap, which is great. The other thing is more to me is games. Now China's got this weird relationship with games, but on Steam, the PC gaming, the main PC gaming platform, games are significantly cheaper to match like the costs over here in China. So games that might cost, for example, in Call of Duty's case, something like £70 or £60 for the new Call of Duty, it only costs me about £45 when converted back over, which is excellent in my case. So yeah, cost of living, very cheap, and at least for me, which I'm happy with. The next thing is services. Now, I've mentioned things about WeChat, Alipay, the kind of streamlined mobile payments, which is great, but I'm more talking about delivery apps for food and packages. So I never really often ordered these kind of things when I was back in the UK. You know, they were kind of like spread out through a lot of different ones. But the app that I use is excellent. It's very quick and easy to understand, even when you don't know the language. And you get constant live updates to where everything is, and you have so much you can choose from, all in one place, which is what I really like. It means I don't need to like fuss about so many different apps. Same with like the packages. Whenever I'd order like packages and things like on Amazon and eBay, there was just this kind of, I don't know, it just felt generally slow. And I never ordered that much, but I never felt like it was quick enough, even with Prime, Amazon Prime. And I don't really get a complete amount of information, and like I'm able to talk to the sellers very quickly. I think that's where like this app Taobao separates it, because it is like an eBay Amazon blend, but I can quickly message these sellers, these representatives, and I'm like, okay, does it do this, does it do that, what does it come with? And they can either just send me photos of the products or instantly answer my question, which is something I feel like it's not that easy to come by when buying things on Amazon or eBay. At least it wasn't for me. Now, the next one is kind of a half and half. It's half one of my favourite things, and it's half one of the things I don't like. And that is my own isolation. Now that sounds kind of dumb that I'm talking about being isolated in this country, like travelling all around the world to be isolated, but it's like, I'll talk about the favourite part of it first. So the reason that I like this isolation that I have is because of my personality. I'm quite talkative with people that I know. I like to go out and socialize with people, but I also very much like the comforts of my home. I'm not saying that if I'm not in my home in like after 6 hours I get just shakes or anything, but it's like there's just a comfort and a general happiness, I guess, it brings me to just be in my home and be somewhere where I can very much relax. This also relates to when I'm outside and doing my going on my own business, shopping or hanging out. Because of the language barrier, because I don't understand what anybody says, or no one can understand me or tries to talk to me, there's this kind of like lack of care that I have with what people think about what I'm doing. You know, like that self-consciousness. It means that like nobody's going to try and bother me whenever I'm doing anything. Now, I'm not saying that happened often when I was back in the UK, but it's kind of like there was a possibility of it, you know? Like someone might say, like talk to me, someone might try to ask me something, someone might bother me. But here in China, never happens. That's the positive to me. Maybe you think that's awful, that's a really boring thing. But this is where I'll get into the other half of it, which is the isolation that I dislike. Now we move on to the dislikes, and again, with isolation. While I do consider myself a bit more introverted and like to stay at home, again, I do like to socialise. I like to go out. I like to talk with friends and hang out with them and do things. And due to, in part, my laziness here and the circumstances of what happened around here, I can't do that. Like at all most of the time. I can't really do it, I'd say. So laziness wise, that's just due to I haven't bothered to learn the language properly, because if I wanted to have proper conversations with people, I'm going to have to really study this language to get it to a level that I can have natural and easy to understand conversations with people. Chinese being a very hard language means it would take years at most, and every year I would think, well, I don't know if I'm going to be here next year. And I'm like, I can't really be bothered. So I never really bothered to learn the language outside of the couple of phrases I would need in work. That already shuts off most of the population that I can talk to. And then the circumstances of what's happened with me, where there are no other foreigners in my work that I can socialise with. It's just me as the foreign English teacher. The other Chinese co-workers, while I can talk to them, we don't really share interests or like get along that well most of the time. Like most of them I don't really get along with, or at least we just act as co-workers. And then my kind of introverted side is I don't like to talk to strangers. I can go and find other foreigners in bars or whatever, but I'm not the person who just goes up and starts a conversation with someone I don't know. If someone talks to me or I'm forced to start a conversation, I can do it quite easily. I can talk all I want, but I don't like to start it. So that's kind of like where the dislike of isolation comes. So due to those reasons, I don't really have any friends here, which sounds quite sad, but it's never something that's truly bothered me. I dislike it, yes, but it's never something that's made me really consider leaving or saying, no, I don't like China too much. It's mostly my fault for the isolation, but again, it's like a fight. It's like part of me likes it, the other part doesn't. So I should really just shut the fuck up and pick one, I guess, you know? The next thing I dislike is a VPN. Now you might think, oh, VPNs are great, blah, 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 give me all the reasons. Sure, they are wonderful, but the fact that I need to rely on a VPN to just do the things that I normally did back home is annoying. I've already said Express works wonderfully here. Most of the time I can connect and I don't really see any drop in connection or quality. I can do things like download legal movies and shows, and actually download like legal games on Steam. I can stream myself playing games with no problems, and I can access most of the websites with the VPN. But when the VPN gets slow, or it's not working, no, I can't do much of my online stuff. Most of my hobby comes from being on a computer, playing games, talking to friends, watching things on YouTube, or browsing Reddit. So, and losing access to that, especially on like my days off when I'm not doing anything, is annoying. And I really dislike having to rely on a VPN to do this. And I'm not going to get into the political and awful reasons for why China uses a VPN and everything they do. I'm just saying, I wish China would just fucking get over it already and just open the floodgates. Another big reason that I've disliked, and this one's kind of grown over the few years I've been here, and that is being a spectacle. Yangzhou, while quite a large amount of people living in it, relative to what I'm used to, is still quite a out there city that doesn't experience many foreigners. So you're a spectacle to people. If people notice you, they'll point at you, they'll stare at you. Kids especially, even old people. Old people and kids are kind of like the two that will stare at you, because they're the two that have never really seen you, like you're like a white guy. Now, of course, I don't help when I've got like the blonde hair, I've got the tattoo that's hiding in here. So these things really stand out. Now, for the most part, it's fine. You know, I'm used to the people just staring at me. You kind of just have a laugh. You kind of look back and smile. But it's when I'm going to places like barbershops and you're still a spectacle, but now you've got one guy cutting your hair and everybody else who works there sitting around you and talking to the barber who's cutting your hair, and they're quite clearly talking about you. Now, maybe they're saying these good things. This guy's got like luscious hair, or he looks handsome. Maybe they're saying this dude's fucking fat. What the fuck's wrong with him? Blah blah blah. Thing is, I don't know, and it doesn't help that at times they'll laugh or they'll smile. Maybe I'm overreacting to this. Maybe I'm overthinking it. But it's still something that starts to pry on your kind of confidence, your self-confidence, and you start to feel very self-conscious about just you being there. It makes me not want to go to these places because I feel like I'm used as entertainment almost. There's a barber that I really like to go to, but every time I go there, they take photos and they all crowd around me and talk, and I hate it. I just wish they'd shut up and cut my hair. So that's quite annoying to deal with for me. Maybe like Shanghai and Beijing, I don't think it's that common because those are very popular cities and you're more likely to see foreigners there. But in Yangzhou, definitely an annoyance. Another thing is how kind of upfront and blunt people can be. Maybe this is a Chinese thing, maybe it's just a people thing and I've ignored it. But a lot of the people I'm speaking to, a lot of Chinese people I've spoken to are very blunt and uncaring on what specifically they'll say to you. I kind of mean it like they might say something that is an insult or it's degrading to you, but they might not even pass it off as an insult, or even they'll just say it as a joke, despite like the truth to it. Now, with me, the most common thing I get is I get called fat. Now, that's true. I am fat. I'm not going to hide it. I'm one of the first people that will make a joke about it. But when everybody tells you you're fat, it grinds on you. Kids, I don't care. Kids they have zero filter and they will say everything, which is how kids are. I don't really mind when kids say it. But when like the parents say it to you, when they like rub your stomach and call you fat, or like when your co-workers constantly just talk about it, or when you like strangers, people you don't even talk to, will kind of mock you with it, Now, I'm usually picking on fat, but sometimes they'll pick on age, like the fact that I look old or tired or blah 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 blah. It's usually something physical. They will uncaringly just say it to you, and they might not mean it as an insult, but they'll just tell you it, and it really grinds on you. Maybe I'm sounding a bit more frustrated now, but wow, it really does start to like get to the point now where I've kind of fired back at my co-workers who keep calling me fat. I will just fire back at them, just minor things, to the point where some of them have just stopped saying it. But with parents, I can't really do that, and kids, again, don't care. So yeah, I guess if you move to China, make sure you're a fucking absolutely stunning specimen of a person in their eyes, and you'll be great. Another thing that I really don't like is the heat. Now, Yangzhou, like, heat can be very bad, especially for someone like me, where I lived in a country that rarely saw the sun, never mind experienced actual hot days. In Yangzhou, from about May until September, October, the temperatures here will go to about 32 to 35 degrees Celsius, which is brutal. It's truly awful. Like this, I feel like I can't function when I'm out in that heat. Now, thankfully, a lot of places have air conditioning. My apartment and my workplace have air conditioning, but that's very situational, and it depends on everything else. It depends on other people. Like my previous workplace, the air conditioning was floor wide, meaning the floor controlled if the AC was on, not your work. So I had to hope to God that the manager of the floor in the shopping centre where I worked would turn on the AC so that I wouldn't be sweating buckets while teaching kids. They hardly ever did. In the new workplace, thankfully, we have direct control of the AC per class. But the kids and the Chinese assistants get cold, so they turn the AC off, meaning I, again, sweat buckets. At home, thankfully, I can have the AC on practically all the time. It's currently sitting at 16 degrees right now, constantly blowing cool air, keeping this apartment very cold. Now, with the heat brings mosquitoes. Now, mosquitoes are a fucking pain in the arse. Anybody who's had to deal with them properly knows how much they would fuck up your entire week, honestly. Especially if you're caught like unaware of them appearing. Now, of course, mosquitoes come with like summer heat and they're attracted to lights, but they're also attracted to you. So if you are, I don't know, working at your computer or you're asleep and you've got a piece of skin that's just open for them to, bite and suck the blood out of, then fucking tough shit, that's you. You're gonna wake up in the morning with swells on your arms, your legs, your hands, your face, and it's gonna be itchy and you wanna deal with it, but you can't. I remember in that first summer when I moved, I would come in and my boss saw me with so many like bite marks and swells that they thought I had an allergic reaction to some food. So yeah, mosquitoes are a massive pain in the arse. You basically have to prepare for war with them, and you're probably going to win at the cost of your arms and legs looking like a bunch of hills, I guess, like a fucking, you've had an allergic reaction. Honestly, it's truly awful. Now, the final thing I dislike is comforts. Not having comforts, but the lack of. Now, this doesn't just mean things like food that I mentioned in a different video. It means everything that you kind of had comfort in and were used to. Of course, food is one thing, but that can also be day-to-day items and services that you were used to. Like for me personally, obviously food is like snacks and different kinds of cooking foods and like sauces, blah blah blah, all sorts. But like day-to-day items, like deodorant, it's not very common here. Like proper book, like English books, I can't just immediately go and find. Just shops that I was used to seeing around in the UK but aren't very common here. And then again, services, that just generally relates to like not being able to find them very well here, but being able to find them easily back home. So the comforts, maybe it's not a lack of comforts, but it's going from convenience to almost a chore to get. Like I can bypass the lack of my comfort foods by just ordering more to me. And of course, they'll take weeks to show up after being imported. Same with day-to-day items, maybe I have to order them, maybe I have to go and find a specific store here. And services, I really have to do some digging and translating on things like Alipay to find them. But again, they can all be found. It's just going from immediate access to a bit of a pain in the ass just to try and get. So that's one of the things I dislike. But that's something you have to deal with when you move to any country. You're not going to have everything that you took for granted back home, and you're going to have to get used to that. In China, it's much. I guess it's probably worse. With China's much more restricted access to a lot of things, but it's just a thing that you'll experience anywhere. So yeah, comforts are the last thing that I dislike about living abroad. And that wraps up this video of all the things that I like and I dislike about living in China and living abroad. Now, like I did say, I mostly talked about things I disliked. Please don't take that as I dislike living in China. I don't like living here. Again, it's just these are the things that immediately stick out. You're far more likely to remember the things you don't like than the things you do like, because the things you do like are things that you're just happy with in general. So I hope you all like this and again learn some new fun things. There'll hopefully be another video next week. I'm kind of still struggling with ideas for videos. I might consider doing another favourites thing, but I will go to locations. But that all depends on time and scheduling and how lazy I feel that day. Again, if you have any more suggestions, please let me know. And if you enjoyed the video, then thanks. I hope you did. I'm not going to beg for likes or anything, but I hope you enjoyed the video. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.